Hello friends, very good evening. Welcome to LTX classes. This is Hindu analysis. First article that we are going to look at today is about inflation, and this article came in page number 7 of Delhi edition. It's an op-ed article. Let's look at what is there in this. Obviously this comes under your general studies paper 3. So let's look at the article. Let's try to understand what the author is trying to say. So author is talking about three aspects. First one, what is driving inflation in India? Second, can monetary policy really help? Third, what should be done to control the particular inflation that we have today? He is saying, let's look at what RBI is saying. RBI is saying global factors are the reason for inflation in India today, and RBI is giving examples of crude oil. From crude oil we will have petrol, diesel. Obviously when the crude oil rate goes up, we import crude oil, we refine it, and we produce petrol and diesel. The prices of petrol and diesel also go up. Similarly, edible oil, which we generally import from Indonesia, palm oil we import from Indonesia, sunflower oil is something we import from Ukraine. The prices of palm oil and sunflower oil also went up because of supply side constraints. Because of these reasons, inflation in India is going up, is what RBI is saying. But the author of the article says the reason is not global factors. He is saying the reason is domestic factors. How can he prove RBI wrong? He is saying that if you look at crude oil comes under fuel and light category of inflation, of CPI inflation. It has a weightage of only 6.84. In overall index, it has a weightage of only 6.84 out of 100. Whereas edible oil comes under oil and fats. In this segment, it has a weightage of just 3.56. Whereas food and beverages segment overall, as a whole, this segment has a weightage of 45.86 out of 100. And he also says food and beverages segment, the inflation in food and beverages segment over the last 5 months is higher than what it was in 2021. Whereas the inflation in these two categories is actually lower in 2022 compared to 2021. Giving these reasons, the author is saying the major factor driving inflation in India today is food and beverages segment. So, and food and beverages segment, except for this edible oils, rest of all the products are domestically produced. So the reason for today's inflation is because of the rise in prices of food and beverages segment, and most of them are domestically produced. So the reason is supply issues in food and beverages segment. We do not have enough supply of food and beverages, whereas the demand is quite high, because of which the prices are quite high. That is the reason we have inflation today, and it is not completely because of global factors as RBI is saying. This is what the author is saying. Second thing, in terms of tackling this, when you have a large amount of inflation, what do governments do? They typically go for monetary policy. Using monetary policy, they try to increase interest rates, they try to reduce money supply, and they try to control overall aggregate demand in the economy. How does economy's demand go down when interest rate goes up? When interest rates go up, loans become expensive. People will not go for loans. They will postpone their purchasing decisions of houses or bikes or cars or so many consumer goods and other items. That way the overall aggregate demand of the economy will go down, and that is how inflation, when the demand goes down, the price level also goes down. This is the assumption under monetary policy. Unfortunately, the problem here is not about cars or houses or anything. The problem here is about food. Food and beverages. This is something we consume every day, irrespective of the prices, we take it every day. So, by raising interest rates, can we really can we really control the inflation of food items? The answer is no, and I am not saying, the author is saying, I am not saying this. This is being said by two prominent people in the world. So he is quoting this particular Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz. Joseph Stiglitz. He is a Nobel laureate. So this person at World Economic Forum said rising interest rates will not reduce the prices of food, because if you are raising interest rate, it will not create more food. If you are raising interest rate, will it create more food? No. So he is saying, by blindly raising interest rates, you will not be able to solve inflation with respect to food. Overall demand you can control, but with respect to food, you cannot control by just raising interest rate or by just using monetary policy. That is what Stiglitz is saying, and he is a Nobel laureate. Remember this. He also quotes another prominent person, Jerome Powell. Who is Jerome Powell? He is the chairman of Federal Reserve, which is Central Bank of United States. He also says, with interest rates, with monetary policy, we will not be able to control the prices of energy and food. He himself says it is very difficult for us to control energy and food prices using monetary policy. Right? Even Jerome Powell is also saying that, which means we need to look beyond monetary policy in order to control inflation with respect to food. Are you getting this point? The problem is with rising prices of food. We need to tackle that. By raising interest rates across the country, we will not be able to tackle food inflation, is what author is saying, and he is taking the support of two prominent persons across the world to prove his point. So then finally, what should be done? What is the solution that these people are giving? They are giving the solution of supply side interventions, which means we need to try and increase the supply of food. We need to try and increase the supply of food. That is how we will be able to reduce the prices. Only by increasing supply we can reduce the prices. Even if it doesn't happen immediately, across the world all countries must try and increase the supply of food. That is the only way you can reduce the prices of food. Otherwise, by raising interest rate, by raising all these things, you will not be able to control food price inflation, an inflation which is predominantly led by the prices of food. Very, very important article. I hope you have understood the overall context of the article. It is very, very important to quote these prominent people. One is a Nobel laureate, the other one is chairperson of Federal Reserve, which is the Central Bank of America. The second article that we are going to cover today is this editorial in page number 6. The title of the editorial is Saving Mothers. Here it talks about MMR. What is MMR? Maternal mortality rate. How do we define maternal mortality rate? Maternal mortality rate is nothing but the number of mothers who die from complications in pregnancy for every 1 lakh live births. Number of mothers who die for every 1 lakh live births. This is what MMR is. And globally, Sustainable Development Goals define we need to keep MMR to less than 70. and MMR comes under Sustainable Development Goal 3. We need to keep the MMR less than 70. But what is India's data showing? What is the MMR currently in India? It says 70% of districts in India, 70% of districts in India, which means 448 out of 640 districts in India, they have shown MMR in excess of 70. In excess of 70. Who did this survey? So researchers from International Institute for Population Sciences. So they triangulated data, which means they took data from different sources. They took data from Health Management Information System. From this they figured out how many mothers are dying. They also took data from Sample Registration System from census data, which generally records the data of number of births, number of deaths, infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate, etc. So they have taken data from two different sources for cross verification, and they came out with this analysis that in India, in more than 70% districts, MMR is more than 70, which means we are away from Sustainable Development Goal number 3. And what are the reasons for this poor performance of India with respect to maternal mortality rate? Obviously, the reason number 1 is your healthcare system. Responsiveness of health systems in India. Indian health systems are not responsive enough. That is obviously your reason number 1. The article also says there are other reasons. What are the other reasons? Access to contraceptives. Access to contraceptives should be improved. This is one reason. The another reason that it talks about is antenatal care. Antenatal care. Antenatal care means care that you need to take before the delivery. So pre-delivery care. Now it is nothing but pre-delivery care, and it also talks about post-delivery care. Post-delivery care, and it also talks about another reason, higher order birth rate. Very important. Higher order birth rate. What is the meaning of this particular word? Higher order birth rate. Higher order birth rate indicates the number of children born as third or fourth kids. If a woman bears more and more children, gives birth to more and more children, up to 2 it is okay. If she is giving birth to 3 children, 4 children, then her body will have to take more risk. So in any country where there is higher order birth rate, where there is more higher order birth rate, the risk of MMR goes up. The risk of maternal mortality goes up. It also talks about the 6th reason, which is higher age deliveries or higher age births. For example, a woman who got married late or who is delivering at a very late age, like 35 plus or 40 plus, even that is not a good age to give birth to children. So these are several reasons for high MMR in India. So what can we do? What is the way forward? So author suggests 2 aspects. The editorial gives 2 aspects to it. First thing, we need to improve overall care, overall health care in the country. Second thing, we need to constantly monitor the data. We need to constantly monitor the health data. What is the health data? Higher age births, higher order birth rate, all these things. We need to look at all these parameters and maintain all the crucial health data. By looking at the data, we will figure out where we are going wrong, and based on our analysis, we can solve the problem. Ultimately, what we need to do is, we should not look at this 70 as a number. Look at this 70 as women. Look at this 70 as her dependent infant. If she dies, what would happen to the infant? What would happen to the family? we have to look at it from the perspective of the infant who becomes motherless, and also the family who loses a prominent woman of the family. We need to look at it from that perspective. 70 is not just a number. This is what we need to understand from this particular article. This is the third article of the day. This is from the business page. Again, this comes from GS 3 economy. The article talks about windfall tax and also export levy on petrol. So there is a key word here, windfall tax. We need to understand a word called windfall profit before we understand what is windfall tax. What is windfall profit? Windfall profit is any surprise one-time profit that a company or an organization gets. It is not a permanent one, it is a temporary one, but something that they get in a huge number, huge amount. For example, what is happening in India today? In India, we have several crude oil producers. We have crude oil producers domestically also. Don't think that we import all the crude oil. There are some crude oil producers in India like Oil India. So they are domestic producers of crude oil. These domestic producers of crude oil have got huge profits recently. Why? Because internationally crude oil prices have gone up, but the cost of producing crude oil in India hasn't gone up. So their cost remains same, but internationally the prices have gone up, because of which these people were able to sell crude oil even in India at international prices. When you are selling it at international prices, which is very high, but your actual cost of production remained same, you get a large one-time profit, and that profit is windfall profit. We call such profits as windfall profits. And if government taxes such profits, if government imposes a tax on such profit, that tax is called windfall tax. Are you getting this? So on July 1st, what did the government of India do? It levied fresh taxes on export of petrol, fuel and ATF, as well as the sale of crude oil in India. It imposed a cess of 23,250 rupees per ton. So you are getting huge amount of profit. Now you pay me some amount to me as windfall tax. The government has imposed a cess of 23,250 rupees per ton. For every ton of petrol that you sell, crude oil that you are selling in India, pay me 23,250 rupees as cess. And that amount has been reduced to 17,000 now. On 1st of July, it was imposed. Now the government of India has reduced it to 17,000. This is one aspect. Similarly, there were also taxes, export duties on ATF. What is ATF? Aviation turbine fuel, the fuel used by all the flights. So India, what happens is, in India we have a lot of refineries like Reliance Industries Limited, BPCL, HPCL. All these refineries, they import crude oil from abroad, they get it and they refine it. Once they refine, they export the refined petrol and other products to abroad as well. Are you getting it? People generally get confused. We don't have enough petrol, how can we export petrol? Yes, we do export petrol. We don't have crude oil. We import crude oil and we refine it. We produce a lot of petrol, diesel, ATF and other substances, and use some of them for our own consumption and export some of them to abroad. So on such exports, government levied fresh taxes on July 1st. On ATF and diesel, the taxes were now cut by 2 rupees per litre and 4 rupees per litre. And on the petrol, it was completely removed. On petrol, it was completely removed. The export duty on petrol was completely removed. So that's about it. So I've taken up this article only to tell you about this particular concept called windfall tax. So this is very important from the perspective of prelims. Windfall tax and windfall profit. Remember this. It's a surprise one-time profit that an organization gets, and the tax on that is windfall tax. That's it. Nothing more to remember here. In the next important article, again from business page, again from GS3, is RBI ready to raise $100 billion rupee defense. So what is happening in the country today? In the country today, rupee is falling. Rupee is falling. Why? Because dollar is rising. Since the value of dollar is rising, rupee obviously is falling, which means in India, imports are more than exports. Very, very important. In India, the cost of imports far exceeds the cost of exports. Remember, when you are importing, you will have to buy a lot of dollars. You will have to buy a lot of dollars. When you are exporting, you will sell a lot of dollars, because when you export, you get dollars, and when you come to India, you sell those dollars. But when imports are more than exports, your buying demand is more than selling of dollars, which means the demand for dollars is more and the supply is less. When the demand is more and supply is less, obviously it pushes up the price. Are you getting this? It pushes up the price. Whenever the demand is exceeding supply, the price will go up. That way, the value of dollar is going up with respect to rupee. This is one aspect to it. You might ask, sir, it's not just import and export. There are other aspects also for exchange rate. Yes, you're right. There are other aspects like investments. Lot of foreign investors, generally they come to India and invest in Indian stock markets. They invest in Indian stock markets and bond markets. For example, a foreign investor comes to India and invests in India, which means he has to sell dollars. He will have dollars, right? He will go to RBI, he will sell the dollars and he will take rupees. With this rupees, he invests in India. But over last few months, what's been happening? Over the last few months, Federal Reserve in America, which is the Central Bank of America, has raised interest rates. Since the Central Bank of America raised interest rates across America have gone up. The interest rates of bank deposits, interest rates of American bonds, everything went up. Now these investors who are in India, these foreign investors who invested in India, now they got attracted to America, because America is offering attractive interest rates. Now what are they doing? They are selling all the investments in India. Very, very important. They are selling their investments in India, which means they are selling all the investments in stock market and bond market. Remember, when they are selling their investments in India, they get rupees. They get rupees. And in order to convert these rupees to dollars, they have to go to RBI and they have to sell these rupees to RBI and buy dollars. Are you getting this? Even from investment side, we have a demand for dollars. We have demand for dollars. So from export-import front, we have demand for dollars. Even from investment side, we have demand for dollars, because more number of investors are leaving India than the people who are coming and investing in India. So overall, the demand for dollars is high and the supply is less, because of which dollar price is going and the value of rupee is going down. Now, in order to control the fall of rupee, what can the RBI do? The RBI has decided to sell dollars, because RBI maintains a lot of foreign exchange reserves. Are you getting this? Now there are more buyers for dollars than sellers. Now RBI is trying to increase the supply of dollars. Demand is more than supply today. RBI is trying to increase the supply of dollars by selling its own dollars. RBI has lot of dollars. It has $642.45 billion, out of which RBI has already sold $60 billion. By selling more and more dollars, by increasing supply, it is trying to support rupee and trying to cut down the rise in the price of dollar, rise in the value of dollars. This is what RBI is trying to do. This is what the article is trying to say. The last article of the day is about Ranil Wickremesinghe. Is a simple news item. Just remember, he is the new president of Sri Lanka. After Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Ranil Wickremesinghe has been elected as the president of Sri Lanka. That's about it. We have covered 5 important articles today from the perspective of UPSC. Take care and share your feedback in comment section. That's about it.